Welcome to the second half, or really the second work. We're outside and done with philosophical fragments, and the other work that is usually paired with it is the work titled Johannes Climacus, or De Omnibus Datium Est, a narrative. This work is a little bit easier in some ways than the last, although there's a lot of depth that we can mine when just approaching this work. Very quickly, we can compare what we're going to see of Kierkegaard's existentialism with notions of the Hegelian dialectic in this work. We can compare the notions of doubt and what doubt should be seen like compared to Descartes, and maybe even enter into that discussion with Berkeley about what exists in the mind. There's a lot of different avenues of what we can do with this second narrative piece. The work opens up with two quotes that we should look at as kind of setting the stage for the rest of the work. That's usually why authors will have it. The first comes from Spinoza, and immediately is connecting not only notions of doubt, but also which school of thought we might want to be kind of comparing ourselves in. Do we want to be the rationalists or do we want to be the empiricists? The fact that he's starting with Spinoza is going to lead us to connecting notions of doubt, not only from Spinoza's point of view, but also those who share his outlook, including Descartes and Leibniz. So we also, at this point, would know who the opponents of these ideas would be. If we're going to look at those English, right, and what ideas that they have advanced about doubt, Berkeley and Hume and Locke. But here, while the stage is set, it doesn't tell us which side of the story that we're going to conclude with. It doesn't tell us what the answer is, or even if the answer is found in one of these two competing sides. From Spinoza, he quotes, "I speak of real doubt existing in the mind." That there's real doubt. That's the whole point of it, right? Not of such doubt as we see exemplified when a man says that he doubts, though his mind does not really hesitate. But that we have different notions of doubt. We have real doubt, where you're not sure, and then you have, I'm not entirely positive, but I'm leaning this way, or I'm just hesitating, I'm curbing my bets, or something along these lines. Spinoza's quote continues, "The cure of the later does not fall within the providence of method. It belongs rather to inquiries concerning obstinacy and its cure." So we're not really dealing with the second half. We're really going to try to understand doubt and the point and purpose of doubt. Now it's odd that this is then paired with Paul's epistle to Timothy, 1 Timothy 4:12. "Let no one despise your youth." Why are these paired together? What are we going to know about youth, or the assumptions of youth? Is youth, just by reading it with Spinoza, going to be in that first category of doubt or that second category of doubt? And why? These are questions to start off with, and we'll have to see what the work does now that the stage has been set with these quotes. Please note, he begins, before we even begin, we're paused. We can't really advance because we had an opening quote or two setting the stage, and then before we advance even more, we're already given another pause, another hesitation. And we might even begin at this point to doubt what it is that we're doing. If Kierkegaard is just having a lark with us, that we are starting off with a title that seems to take forever, followed by two quotes that tell us that we're going to doubt something and trying to understand real doubt, but we're not even sure what side of the argument we're really landing on. And then, before moving forward, we're told to stop and to note. We have more caveats, more confusion than anything else. What title? What avenue? What are we going to do? Maybe the note will help us out. Maybe it's not. Maybe, again, this is all part of the weird game that we're entering into to get into the headspace of this character, Johannes Climacus. We are told in this note, someone who supposes that philosophy has never in all the world been so close as it is now to fulfilling its task of explaining all mysteries may certainly think it strange, affected, and scandalous that I choose the narrative form and do not, in my small way, hand up a stone to culminate the system. So, what does he mean that we've never come so close in all of the world to fulfilling the task of knowing all the mysteries? Where are we with this system of philosophy? What is he addressing? Well, we know from other works and the place that Kierkegaard is putting himself in with this work, that this is a reference to Hegel and Hegel's thought of completing and culminating the system of Kant's philosophy. Right, so we're starting off that, right, here we are, we're ready to finish and understand and maybe complete or critique what Hegel has done. But then, why are you not adding to that? Why are you having a narrative? Why is there a narrative that's going to help explain this? And yet, we haven't fully even engaged in the debate yet. He continues, but someone who has become convinced that philosophy has never been so eccentric as now, never so confused despite all of its definitions. Which definitions of philosophy are we going to give? What is the emphasis and the goal, and how is this going to look and be shaped? He then throws in yet another little aside about the weather last winter changing and this, that, and the other, and he's kind of making an appeal to a common Danish expression about extraordinary situations or some sort of overwhelming event that is imminent and upon us, according to the footnote. But, then he continues, that person will surely find it in order that I too, by means of the form, seek to counteract the detestable untruth that characterizes recent philosophy, which differs from older philosophy by having discovered that it is ludicrous to do what a person himself said he would do or had done. So we've got this emanating moment that's going to overwhelm us or could. And then what does he do? What does Kierkegaard advance and suggest? That he's using a narrative form to point out and to counteract the fact that recent philosophy is in a stage of untruth. So here he says, while we're right there at the cusp, while we are here with Hegelian philosophy it almost being done, we're going to stop, we're going to pause, and we're going to say, no, we're on the wrong track. Things are not right. So at the very beginning, the note seems to point out that what we're going to see is against Hegel's system, even though it's kind of advancing in this idea, in this mode. He's going to say, no, this is the wrong direction. This is not where we want to go. He concludes this note by saying that he will find it in order and will merely lament, as I do, that the one who here begins this task has no more authority than I have. But the task that we're engaging in, trying to understand and culminate philosophy, doesn't come with any sort of authority. By the way, this phrase without authority, or does not have authority, is something that we see over and over again in Kierkegaard's works. Kierkegaard repeats this phrase without authority in a lot of his upbuilding discourses, his comments about how he sees himself. We also read this in some of his papers when he's speaking about himself. He says that he has something of a poet in his nature. In other respects, is a thinker. But yes, how I've often repeated this, to me so important and crucial, my first statement about myself, without authority, that this is how he views himself. He's a poet, he's a thinker, he plays around with things, but he doesn't really have the authority to say something, and therefore everyone will agree. This is part of the reason why he uses pseudonyms, because his name, while he thinks that he is something, doesn't have the authority to proclaim something. He's not a Socrates or a Plato or an Aristotle. So he doesn't have authority to challenge these things, yet some things need to be challenged. One person is going to be right or another. When we're trying to understand the nature of our life and how we interact with one another, even if we don't have authority, we need to engage. Kierkegaard chose not to become a parson, not only because of his dislike of the growing official church in Denmark, but even before that, he chose not to do so because he didn't have the authority, at least in his own mind. Even though people would look at him and go, yeah, sure you do. You're smart, you're engaged, you've got a wealthy family, you're well connected, you're a part of this community. Why would you not think that you have the authority to do so? And even when he wrote what looks like sermons as an exercise of this, he calls these upbuilding discourses. Right? Part of the whole idea of a discourse is that you don't have the authority to preach. Right? This is just comments, and he also in no way ever claims to be a teacher. So while we have this note and we're going to understand where we're going, he's saying, I'm going to question what is seeming to be this prevailing doxa of Hegelianism. We're going to start with not trying to complete the system or say that we're even being a corrective, but we're going to hedge our bets. I don't have the authority to say this, but these questions still need to be asked. And maybe, just maybe, this is somewhat of the reason why he's got the quotes he does at the beginning. What is it that we're doubting? Is this prevailing system possibly? Or our youth, our inexperience, our lack of authority shouldn't be a reason why the work is going to be despised? Maybe this is the reason why he's also using a narrative form. While it might be laughable, anyone could tell a story. I don't have authority to challenge Hegel, but I have at least an ability to tell a story. I might not be adding a stone to culminate this system, and we might have a catastrophe if we accept a Hegelian wave overcoming us. But I'll have a story. I don't have the authority to push back on anything. But let's begin this task. Let's start by actually wondering and asking these questions. Again, we're a long way into this to have so many caveats and not sure where we're going.